let's talk about identifying money and money organization systems and money transactions and things of that nature. In your packets of information that you received, there are some pictures of money, and I actually have some here, of a folding system. We'll start with that. There are multiple folding systems out there. The system you use or teach the student is not as important as teaching them a system and teaching them to use it consistently. The system I used, or that I often taught, was the $1 bill was flat. The $5 bill is folded in half so it becomes more like a square. The $10 bill is folded long ways, so it becomes like a long rectangle. And the $20 bill, I folded long ways, like the 10, and then folded it again. The system's not the main thing, though. The thing is that they have a system they use consistently. You want to make sure, though, that that system is one that's not going to come unfolded in their wallet. Often, people will just fold down one corner for their 20 and maybe two corners for the 10. That's something that can easily become unfolded, and then they lose what the bill is. So it needs to be consistently used and one that's going to stay in its shape. There's the new bills and the old bills out there. The older bills, by the new bills I mean the ones that are on the back, have the big 20, the big 10, the big 5. Those are becoming more and more in circulation. The old bills are harder to find. But you want to teach how to identify both sets of money to the student. A student with no vision will need someone sighted to help them sort the bills out and fold them in the beginning. It may be a family member, someone they trust. It may be when they go to the bank. They actually, before they leave the teller window, they fold their money and put it away there. It may be after they complete a transaction, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a minute, that they fold the money right there. There are also machines that they can put their money in, and it'll say 5, 10. It'll identify the bills for them. They are quite costly, and sometimes places won't purchase that for the student if they have sighted folks around that can identify it for them. And whether you're in the education system or the VR system, there's different rules and regulations regarding that device. But let's talk about how to visually identify or teach a student to visually identify some of the currency that's out there. Before we do that, though, what I find often is students will say, well, I don't need to fold my money because I can see it. And then I say, hand them some bills and have them tell me what these bills are. And they hold the bills up real close to their eyes and really look at them and turn them over and they say, oh, that's a 10. I like to stress with them that when you're doing money transactions, you want to act confident and that they need to be able to say, here's a 10, here's a 20, and not be struggling to see what the bill is. So they really need to be encouraged to use a folding system so that when they're at home or wherever, they can look at the bill closely, put it in their wallet or put it in whatever organization system they're using, and then when they're out, they don't even have to really glance at it. They can just confidently say, here's my 10. So assess them. If they say, oh, I don't have any trouble with money, I can do it. Watch how they do it and then talk to them if you see that they're struggling. And also talk about, you can identify it in this light. What about when you're at the movie theater and it's dark? Sometimes when you're in the checking into a theater, there's not a lot of light there and those type of things. Or if you're out on a date, you want to be able to walk up to the window and just say, here's my money. As far as visually identifying the money, so that they can fold it and get it organized for when they go out, there are some things that can be done. This is kind of washed out, but I think you'll see the picture part. On the $1 bill, the old bills, and actually before I teach them this, I often have them tell me how they're identifying the differences between bills, and I'll often have them give them the money and say, look at the one and tell me what you think stands out to you on it. Here's the 5. Tell me what stands out to you. So it might be what the system I'm going to talk about may not be visually the best things for them to look for. Have them look and pick out their cues or landmarks. But here's some that I find that folks with low vision can often do. The $1 bill, the old one, if they have it on the back, actually let me get my old picture out here. Looking at the back of the dollar, the center of it, they often see a white square where the word O-N-E is spelled out. It just looks white to them. That can help them identify the 1. The 5, students can often see the pillars of Lincoln Memorial. They just see actually the spaces in between the pillars. They see dark lines. The 10, sometimes they'll see a big oval, white oval. And the 20, they'll see kind of a letter C on its side, or a half moon shape with dark patches on the left and right side that are really bushes on the sides of the White House. So they can look for different light and dark patterns on the back of the bills to identify the money. But again, I try to stress not using this system when they're out. Use this to get their money organized before they go out. And have them pick out what they can see and how they can identify it. The new bills can be more difficult sometimes. That's my new bill pictures. Although they have the nice big 5, 10, and 20 printed on them, for a student with real low vision, the bill looks pretty much the same. And that 5, 10, and 20, students sometimes make more mistakes with that. But you can have them look at that bill. Let's see, I think I actually have a 20 here. Let me get out while we're doing this. I have a 20 and a 10. Although the general layout is the same, and the big number 10 is at the bottom right corner, and the 20 is at the bottom right, the layout is the same. But you can still look at what's in the center of the bill and identify some differences. There isn't a new one yet. I don't know for sure. I think there is a new one that's going to come out in the near future. But with the new 5, often it's still the pillars, some dark lines for the Lincoln Memorial. There's not as many or as distinct, but they can still see light and dark differences with that. The 10, there's often some pillars with dark patches on either side. So you have to really point out the 5 also has those dark pillars, but they're a little bit different. The 20, they'll often see a dark patch on the left and the right side and the bottom. Again, it doesn't have to be this though. Have the student look at the bills and see if just from the patterns they can identify the differences. Once they've learned to identify differences, you need to work with them on developing an organizational system for paper currency and coins. And let's real quick talk about coins before we do our organization system. I drew some handy-dandy little coins here. Actually, other teachers have very similar drawings of this. I just wanted to talk about, you can help them learn to identify coins, not just by size. Some people say, well, I can do it by the size of the coin, but a nickel and a quarter, if you just have a single quarter and not a nickel to compare it to, sometimes it's hard to tell what size it is. The quarter's usually easy. It's the nickel that really confuses people. They think it's big enough to be a quarter, and it's not. So tell them to use their fingernail and feel the edges of the coin. The quarter and dime have ridges. The penny and nickel are smooth. Also, you should talk to them about the new dollar that's out there. Although you don't see a lot of these, it's the dollar with the Indian princess on it. I don't see many here in Pennsylvania, but when I lived in the South, there were quite a few of these in circulation. Whether they still are or not, I don't know. But you want to talk to them about that it's big, like a quarter, but it's smooth. And typically it's not confused with a nickel unless they're not familiar with it. And then they think they have this big thing and it feels too big for a nickel, but it doesn't have any ridges. So talk about that. Talk about the Susan B. Anthony dollar. There's not many of those in circulation. I don't have any fabulous tips for identifying that different than a quarter. It is bigger than a quarter, and it's a little bit more hexagon shape, but it's ever so slight that it's really difficult to tell unless you have a quarter to hold it up next to. But you still want to make them aware of that it's out there in case they get one that they know, oh, that's one of those Susan B. Anthony dollars. So those are some tips for doing coins. Now let's talk about organizational methods and as far as making money transactions. Folding, we talked about that as being a good method. Some people like to use a money clip. That's really not a real good system to use with low vision or without any sight because it's not a good way to keep your folding system in place. Wallets are very good to use. Sometimes just a general man's wallet is a good thing. They make, although this is a lady's wallet, they do make men's wallets that have a divider in the middle. Having a divider can be helpful. Some people will take if they have a man's wallet and put a divider in it. Ladies' wallets, you can buy those with dividers in it, whether it's just a wallet or an actual, more like a purse type device. Sometimes you want to be careful, and it's an individual choice, but there are people that will actually buy a wallet that has 5 different pockets or 4 different pockets, one for ones, fives, tens. Sometimes the more pockets you get, the more confusing it gets. So you want to help the student develop something that's as simplified as possible. I like often to get a wallet with a divider in it and teach the student to fold the money and put their ones all together and their fives together, their tens together, their 20s together, and keep the ones on one side, the ones and fives on one side of the divider, the tens and 20s on another side. There are, of course, larger bills, and there may be times when a student really needs to, or an individual needs to carry bigger amounts of money. I often teach them to put it somewhere separate in the wallet so it's not going to get confused with the rest. But for the most part, I emphasize it's better to carry smaller bills if you can help it. Something I want to talk about with that $10 bill, I said to fold it in half longwise. When they put it in their wallet, they should put it with the fold up, not with the fold down towards the bottom. Because if they do that, they may actually stick another bill inside of it so that when they pull it out, the other bill falls out. If the folds are kept up, they're less likely to accidentally pull something else out. As well as when they're counting the money, they want to just quickly fill in there, I have 2 tens or I have 1 10. If the fold is left up, they might miscount and say, I have 2 tens in there, and only have 1, and later say, somebody stole one of my tens. So keep the folds up. When they're doing a money transaction, one of the reasons I encourage to carry smaller bills, and granted you don't want to have a wallet full of $100 bills, that's going to be a very thick wallet. But if you can have ones, fives, tens, and 20s, you can actually pay, or even just ones and fives, or ones, fives, and tens, with a closer amount to what you're being charged. If you buy something for $3, if the student can give them $3, that's great. If not, though, it's better to give them a $5 than it would be to give them a 10, because then they get 2 $1 bills back. But if they paid for a $3 item with a $10 bill, they're going to get a 5 and 2 ones. And somebody could slip them 3 ones instead. So if you pay with a closer amount, it's better. For the most part, people are honest, but you need to make the student aware that they could give them the wrong change. The other thing to prevent getting the wrong change, when they go up to pay for something, they need to be confident. That's where it goes back to, if they're saying, is this a 20? The person that they hand the money to is more likely to say, they might not notice if I slip them the wrong bills. But even if the person is standing there with their long cane, identifying themselves as visually impaired, but opens up their money and says, out of 20, the cashier is going to be the person that's not sure, or more off guard. How does this person know what that was? So they're going to be less likely to take advantage of the person. So teach them to be confident, teach them to hand out the money and say what the bill is as they hand it to the person. This also makes them less of a target as far as for other people around, as well as if the person behind them hears them say out of 20, and they don't want to scream it, but they, confident, and the cashier tried to give them the wrong change. The person behind them, would say, no, wait, I heard her say out of 20. So they want to be confident and vocalize what they're doing. When they get their change back, there's a couple options right then as far as what they want to do with the money. I know when you go to the grocery store anymore, they give you your receipt, this, and coupons, and your change. It gets very cumbersome, and often I feel rushed to what to do with all this money. You want to stress to the student first to take their time. They're a paying customer. They don't need to hurry, within reason. And it even maybe just, if they're really feeling uncomfortable, that they step to the end of the checkout line, out of the way, so the next person can start their transaction, get it organized there if they need to. But if they might need the cashier to tell them what the bills are, so to fold it right then and there. If they again take with the closest amount, they don't have as much money to organize. But they can say right back to the cashier, please tell me what bills you're putting in my hand as you do them. So the cashier can say, this is your 10, 5, 1. And maybe as they put the 10, take the time to fold it and put it away right then, and organize the money before they leave. That's one option. Another option is I've had students and individuals put the money in their pocket separate. And you don't want to go to 10 different stores and keep jamming money in there. But for that one store, put it in their pocket. Maybe the grocery shopping money with that receipt in one pocket, and if they went to Walmart, that money in another pocket, and then organize it when they get home. But if they're going to choose to do that, then again, they need to pay with the lowest amount. They don't want to pay with a $100 bill for a $20 item and be putting $80 in their pocket. Because if they get home and find the cashier made a mistake, it's too late to fix it. As well as that's a lot of money in your pocket to accidentally, something could fall out. If they want to put it in their pocket, I stress, pay with that closest amount so it's only a few dollars. Quickly about coins too. Students even want to learn not to just hand out their hand and say, take what you need. Again, that takes away from that acting confident and knowing what money you have. I have students that take all their change with them. I do have students that will go home, sort out all their quarters, and just put their quarters in their pocket and leave the other coins at home, and every once in a while take them to the bank. That's an option. But you still want to make sure that they can identify the differences. They just may not want to have to deal with all that cumbersome change at that point. And that's pretty much my tips for money. I just can't stress enough having an organizational system and using it consistently.